Today, the entire world is appalled by the brutal murder of Jim Foley by the terrorist group ISIL. Jim was a journalist, a son, a brother, and a friend. He reported from difficult and dangerous places, bearing witness to the lives of people a world away. My fellow Americans, tonight I want to speak to you about what the United States will do with our friends and allies to degrade and ultimately destroy the terrorist group known as ISIL. In acts of barbarism, they took the lives of two American journalists, Jim Foley and Steven Sotloff. Our objective is clear. We will degrade and ultimately destroy ISIL through a comprehensive and sustained counterterrorism strategy. First, we will conduct a systematic campaign of airstrikes against these terrorists.
President Obama's reference to James Foley in his bid for U.S.-led military aggression offended a filmmaker who worked with Foley during anti-NATO protests in 2012, shortly before he returned to Syria. Both Foley and the legendary cinematographer and director Haskell Wexler were in Chicago when veterans of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars led protests against the NATO summit there and hurled their war medals toward its gates.
To what end is the greater purpose? And I guess that's the root question of NATO, right?
Yeah.
To what end are we fighting these wars?
Yeah.
Haskell, thanks so much for sharing this incredible interview with us. We're going to play more of James Foley. Talk about why you are bringing this out now.
Amy, I'm pissed off. I am angry. I see how the American public is being confused, lied to, and given theater to make us buy that war is the way to have peace, and to use a journalist like Jim Foley, who was truly a journalist, wants to search for the truth, actually was out amongst them, and volunteered to work with my film group in Chicago, which were there documenting an anti-NATO demonstration. In fact, he himself took a camera, and I have 30 minutes of film of him talking to people in Chicago, so that he was not a person, a detached, objective journalist. He realized that our foreign policy is destructive when he had a humanitarian crisis that hurt him deeply, that he saw in Syria. And the funny thing is, the government knew what his position is. With all the surveillance was on just students in Chicago who were opposing NATO and the war, the taking of their computers, certainly the look into journalists and their points of view. If they didn't know before, when James Foley took a camera to work with me and my fellow Chicago filmmakers in an anti-NATO film, there's no question on what side of the fence he's on. And the government functions on, you're either 100% for us or you're the enemy. And that's why a lot of our discussions and other interviews was Jim talking about the other, how authorities can establish who the other is. And once they're other, they're less than human, they're less than smart, and you can do anything to them because you have to teach them a lesson. So for them to use him as a poster boy for more violence is obscene. And I think that the country has to know it's obscene.
Well, Haskell Wexler, let's go to footage that you shared with us of Foley speaking with you in 2012 at the anti-NATO protests in Chicago. Here's another clip.
I'm interested in what you said about the other, the categorization of the other, because you see it in all conflicts and wars, and you're saying El Salvador, you're saying here, and I saw it in Libya and Syria, and it's like both sides attempting to, you know, paint a group as the enemy, as the other, and what happens, the dehumanization process of that, and that's extremely dangerous. But I guess it has to happen. It happens in a war so that they can kill each other.
Yeah.
So,
But it seems like it's slicker here
Right.
in that they say, the police and the authorities, they are Chicago.
right.
They're
right.
Chicago, and they are protecting Chicago.
So-
and they call the word security. And the people who come in who object to the violence that NATO represents, they're part of that system. I mean, I heard what they're doing to build up the facility where they are. The new chairs, the new doors, the super walls. What? How do they separate? I think the media helps separate us from people. TV doesn't. No, normally.
Right, because what is this coverage? You know, what is this coverage going to focus on? You know, we'll see some shots of police, you know, and we'll see some cutaways to protesters. Hopefully, they'll get some kind of action in there,
Yeah.
and then that's essentially the story. It doesn't go much
Yeah.
deeper than that on broadcasting, certainly. So.
Well, Haskell Wexler, you were in Chicago at the NATO summit, making a film, 4 days in Chicago. How did you? And that's how you came across Foley. How did you end up deciding to make that film?
I decided to make that film because Chicago is my hometown, and in 1968, when another anti-war demonstration was there, the power of the police and the state went in there and suppressed them brutally. And later it was called a police riot. And then when the Occupy was announced to be in Chicago, the Chicago Tribune had an article that the mayor quoted the mayor saying that this is not going to be like '68. And actually he mentioned my film Medium Cool, and he said they're going to deal with these people in a new way. And so I decided I better go back to my hometown and find out what's there. And I went there with two West Coast filmmakers who were ex-Chicago people, Andy Davis and Mike Gray. And with the help of a lot of young people in Chicago, we made a film called 4 Days in Chicago.
Haskell Wexler, I wanted to get your reaction to Diane Foley, James Foley's mother, who did an interview last night with CNN's Anderson Cooper. She said officials told her she could face prosecution if she tried to raise a ransom to free her son. She said the U.S. had also refused to exchange prisoners or carry out a military rescue effort early on.
I think our efforts to get Jim freed were an annoyance, you know. And
an annoyance to the government.
Yes. And and it didn't seem to be in our strategic interest, if you will. I was appalled as an American. Jim would have been saddened. Jim believed till the end that his country would come to their aid. We were, asked to not go to the media, to just trust that it would be taken care of. We were told we could not raise ransom, that it was illegal, we might be prosecuted.
You were told you would actually be prosecuted?
Yes,
if you
that was a real possibility. Told that many times. We were told that our government would not exchange prisoners. would not do a military action. So we were just told to trust that he would be freed somehow, miraculously. And he wasn't, was he? And we're dealing with very difficult people when we talk about ISIS. Their hate for us is great. And yet, some of our response to them has only increased the hate. You know? So I feel there's a need for debate, discussion. I pray that our government would be willing to learn from the mistakes that were made and to acknowledge that there are better ways for American citizens to be treated.
Haskell Wexler, your response, as Diane Foley says, the U.S. government treated these parents before James Foley was beheaded as an annoyance.
I'm trying to get over my anger that I expressed early about the theatrical utilization of the opposite of what James Foley, and try to concentrate on what lessons we have from this situation. And I thought, I saw James Foley's mother, and I thought, here's a brave, good woman, sort of representing everything that America is all about. And she's saying that our government is not telling the truth, and our media, in the main, maybe a few breakthroughs now, certainly with you, but otherwise, seeing that what they call America being war weary. It's not we're just tired of fighting war, but we're tired of being deceived and having that deception taken from all the needs that we have in America today.
Haskell Wexler, your final thoughts today after you bring us the video of James Foley at this anti-war protest in 2012.
Well, my final thought for today is that the government, that is our military government, and I'm saying that it's far more deeply militaristic than we even realize, that our government is going to do whatever it's going to do. It's certainly shown that about Syria, but they have to develop new theatrical events to make it seem like something good. You know, dropping bombs and then humanitarian aid as the public thing is today of a new policy. So I think we have to know how the forces are and to realize there's plenty in this country that will see through the sham before it's too late.
Haskell Wexler, I thank you for being with us. Legendary cinematographer, journalist, director, perhaps best known for his 1969 film Medium Cool. Haskell Wexler's won 2 Academy Awards for cinematography and Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and Bound for Glory. Over his 6 decades of filmmaking, Haskell Wexler has also received 5 Oscar nominations and an Emmy. He worked with journalist James Foley in 2012 before Foley returned to Syria, where he was kidnapped and beheaded by ISIS. They met when Foley helped shoot video for Haskell Wexler's film 4 Days in Chicago about those anti-NATO protests led by veterans and soldiers opposed to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
I was in Afghanistan with U.S. troops in 2010, and I'm really interested in the young guys, the ones that are just coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. Those guys' perspectives, you know, because that has a huge impact, you know, if they're giving their medals back. They have the most authentic voice to criticize, you know, NATO right now. They're inside the beast.
You don't end up being a ranger by accident.
No, I wanted to put a bullet in bin Laden's head. That was very clear. I didn't want to go into the Army and get job skills. I wasn't interested in college. I would not be in the Army if it wasn't for 9/11. And when I joined, my intention was to be part of a unit that would allow me to have access to the people who attacked us. I wanted to get them, and I wanted revenge, plain and simple. We picked this particular NATO rally because there's only been one other NATO meeting in the United States since 9/11.
I want to begin by welcoming each and every one of you to my hometown. I hope everybody has enjoyed themselves.
He's got me! He's got me! Get off me! I can't! We are a collective organization, so we make decisions based on consent. And everybody gets a chance to speak their mind, and this is the consent that we came to, is that we need to return our medals.
How many of you guys are representing?
There's going to be about 40 of us returning our medals at this point.
I will not continue to trade my humanity for false heroism.
As far as your political development against the war, it's been a process?
Yes, it was, and it's never ending. I mean, I think anybody who claims to have the answers at any given time is lying to you. I think there's a lot of fear that went into it, to me not questioning. But it finally broke through when I was recalled and was pulled back in the Army after I left. And I tried to run away from all these things. I was finally forced to face them. I couldn't ignore the military. I couldn't ignore veterans and my commitments that I had made. So I began resisting and educating myself and getting to a point where now I can stand with our Afghans for peace members and actually feel a semblance of forgiveness from them and assuage some of the guilt that I feel.
How can you reach out to guys who are still on active duty who might be starting to question the war?
Well, I think if you're over there, or even you're part of the military, even if you haven't deployed, you're questioning the war. And you're questioning your existence. I mean, it's a very dehumanized existence. It's a beat down. People are constantly treating you poorly, dehumanizing you. And it's different for different people. Some people have great experiences in the Army or in the military. My experience is that that's few and far between.
I spent almost 4 years of my life practicing violence against the people of Afghanistan. And I know better than anybody what it means to be a purveyor of violence. And as you drive around the city today, you can see police from 6 different states. You can see the Secret Service, the FBI, the NSA. Wave if you're one of them. I see a bunch of you out there right now. They have a lot of guns, and they know how to use them. They know how to use violence. And if we want to create a different world, we're going to have to live that different world today.
So what we've been doing with Iraq Veterans Against the War is rebuilding a new community, taking some of the best parts of our experience and recreating it.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, bro. Can't wait to see you.
The clip you just saw was shot by Jim Foley, Syria and me, Haskell Wexler. We will be showing you more footage from a different time in our friend Jim Foley's life. Watch out for it. Jim Foley is not going to die in the desert of the Middle East.